Welcome to Oz Talk. Today we are gaming in Oz. From video games to board games, card games to RPG, we've got you covered with the coolest classics and even some glimpses at what's to come. This show is brought to you by the Oz Club. Since the 1950s, the International Wizard of Oz Club has been bringing fans together. Go to ozclub.org to join. Great to see everybody. I'm so excited to talk today because one of my earliest Oz memories is about the Catico Wizard of Oz game. I know Garrett has it and can hold it up right there. That is a Wizard of Oz board game that was made the year I was born and was one of my favorite things to play growing up. It's not the coolest board game, but just because the graphics and the storyline followed my favorite movie, I used to play it all the time with anyone who would. There are some cards in the game that look like the characters that you can hold at certain points, and I just used to play with those even outside of the game. I also love that recently gaming in Oz has stepped up. I mean, we see a lot of things like there's this really cool tin that is Uno. Return to Oz had a really cool board game that I only recently got my hands on. Nintendo DS did a Follow the Yellow Brick Road game that was kind of fun. I loved this Nintendo game. It was slow and stodgy, but again, just having an Oz theme at that time was really cool. And then, the classics like Monopoly, Life, and a matching game for kids. I mean, there's all great licenses out there. One of my favorite card games is Oz Flux. I've played it so many times. It's like an addictive type game that you can play again and again and again. But my current addiction is Home from Oz. And what I love about this game is I got it and I didn't know how to play it. And then at the Chesterton Wizard of Oz days, I met the creators, Joseph and Jessica South, and they're going to be joining us today. They taught us how to play in Chesterton, and they're here today to talk about how they created this game because it is way more brilliant than you even think at first blush. So before we introduce them properly and welcome them to the show, Garrett, why don't you tell us some of the games that you grew up loving?
I also grew up with the Catico game. It's actually directly responsible for my multi-toys Dorothy having no socks because the art featured Dorothy without socks. But then there were a couple of other games. This one from 2007 that's kind of just a standard follow the board game one called Adventures in Oz. There was the really beautiful 100th anniversary game that has just absolutely stunning art and very confusing gameplay. And then my personal favorite, the 1993 other Catico game that's 3D and pops up, and it takes you all of like 5.5 minutes to play. I mean, it's not anything great challenging, but it's just so pretty to look at. So yeah, those are some of the games from my youth.
Zoe, for me, having Oz games, it was always a struggle finding somebody to play them with me. They wanted to play, other games, right? Did you have the similar experience? And what are some of your favorites?
I did. As a kid, especially like my older brother was not. He was into Wizard of Oz when he was little, but by the time I was old enough to really be into it, he had moved on. So it was kind of hard. Every now and then my mom would be like, okay, I'll get down on the floor and play the Catico game with you. It's going to take 45 minutes. And, it's like, and it's not a super amazing game, but it's got a beautiful board. Also, I had the Wizard of Oz trivia game, which I don't have on me. It's in storage somewhere, so I couldn't show that today. But no one would play it with me because they knew they weren't going to win. None of my friends, none of my family. They're like, why play a trivia game when we know you're going to win? Other than that, in 1995, there was this game that I found by complete accident at a multimedia store that was called Media Play in Greenwood, Indiana. It's called Yellow Brick Road. It's from Japan. It is a super hard battle game, which, I mean, if you see this, you don't see this and think, oh, there's Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion. It's a battle game. But my mom bought it for me, and it was hard. I got it when I was 5. I didn't beat it until I was about 12 because I couldn't even grasp it. And after I beat it, I found out it had a cliffhanger, and there was a sequel, Yellow Brick Road 2, that was only released in Japan. So to this day, I'm still trying to scour Japan and eBay.
so rich. We maybe should take a group trip over to Japan and look for one.
Yeah. Well, one of my friends, one of our former Tin Men from Spirit of Oz, lives in Japan now, and he's looking for it for me.
Awesome.
There's also the Return to Oz game that was for the Spectrum 48K, which was a European video game system. There was also one made for the Commodore 64, which was the American version. And my favorite Oz game, anything, is the 1921 Game of Oz, which this board is so big, I have to just kind of like put it here. It's from 1921 by Parker Brothers. The board is the map of Oz. And because it was licensed through the Baum Estate and Riley and Lee, it features characters and locales from all the Baum books, not just Wonderful Wizard. And when it was first released, it had pewter tokens of the Fab Four, who were later, when Parker Brothers decided they wanted to make it more economical, they switched to generic wooden tokens like you'd see in Clue. It also came with a 6 die that had the letters to spell out wizard. I don't have the instructions, so I'm not quite sure how it works, but it was something about you had a little cup and you tried to throw the dice so that they would spell out wizard. But I don't know anything about the gameplay, but it's beautiful to look at, and I usually have the board hanging on the wall in my Oz room.
That is amazing, and that seems like one of the coolest, like, most collectible things just from the age of it. Really, it's really
I would assume it's the first Oz board game. I think there was a card game before, a Wogglebug game back in the early 1900s. But as far as I know, 1921, that was the first time we ever saw a Wizard of Oz board game. And it was in production for quite some time. And it has a gorgeous box, which I've been unable to get.
Very cool. Tori, how about you? What games are you obsessing over?
Board games are actually one of the things I really love to collect. I love comic books and games, and it's been a focus of my collecting. One of the things that's a pride of my collection is the 1939 card game that was produced in Britain. These cards are absolutely spectacular to look at. I don't actually know. I have the instructions, but I've never actually played it. I don't exactly know what kind of card game it is, but it's just beautiful to have. Also, the United States Playing Card Company a few years ago made a couple of sets of really cool collectible playing cards. These are just regular old playing cards, but they're really, really beautiful. So if you are interested in having a set of Wizard of Oz playing cards, those are great. Oh my gosh, there's also this role-playing game that Orion's Bell produced, and these were all made with artists. A bunch of individual artists came together to make these cards. They're beautiful. You can get this online every once in a while. We also, of course, have talked about the Tin Man game, which is super, super fun and beautiful to display. So if you're interested in collecting games, that would be a good one to have.
I want that so bad.
Come on over, we'll play it. Of course, there's the Off to See the Wizard game, which we've talked about in past episodes. That's really cool. And the one that nobody would ever play with me, the Monopoly game. My sister always claimed that the bright colors gave her a headache, which was her excuse for not wanting to play it. But it's just traditional Monopoly, all retrofitted with Wizard of Oz imagery, which is super, super fun. So that's what I've got for today.
Well, usually I would play the Monopoly game, though, because we have a friend of mine had the Monopoly game, actually the 75th anniversary version of it, though, too. And I used to go over there and doing college time, I would go to her door and was like, hey, can we play what Monopoly was? I would like awkwardly knock on the door and just be like, hey, can we play? And then she would be like, okay, even though she would run me out the room like 2 turns in. And then, of course, you brought up the DS game, Return to the Yellow Brick Road, which is practically Final Fantasy meets the Wizard of Oz game. I had that for the DS before my DS broke, and then I actually sold it. But it's actually a fun RPG game. If you like Final Fantasy and if you like the Wizard of Oz, you would definitely enjoy that. So those were really the 2 games that kind of got me through, though, my introduction into the Wizard of Oz gaming side of it.
Those are all really fun, and you can download from the App Store this Wizard of Oz Magic Match game, and it's just a typical boring match game. But what I find is that the graphics are so well done. Has anybody else played that game?
The graphics are great in it. Like it's your basic just Bejeweled, but
yeah,
some of that artwork is just fantastic.
I wasted too many hours playing it because it also plays the music from the movie. So it's like when I go to a casino and I see a Wizard of Oz slot machine. I don't have a gambling issue. I just want to see the characters and listen to the music, so I keep pressing buttons.
We're all like that. That's right. You see something Oz, even if it doesn't fit into whatever genre or your lifestyle, you have to add it or at least experience it because they made an Oz version of it, right? That's crazy. It's funny. I totally identify with you about that.
I actually played Magic Max a little bit though. I actually just started playing it, so they actually finally have it out for Android. So it's like I just
cool. Yeah, I'm on level 200 something. I'm ashamed to say that. So I've also
I got work to do to catch you, Ryan. I got work to do.
Yes, you do. I also really enjoyed Lego Dimensions, and
oh my god,
it's kind of a mess of a game, but they did come out with Wizard of Oz characters, so I broke down and bought an Xbox, and I got the game, and I got all the pieces, and take a look at how cool at least it looks in the Wizard of Oz part.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
You're coming with me, Scarecrow.
Another one to join us on our journey. And what are you missing?
A sense of humor. Hand him over.
But why ever would we do that?
Because he's a heartless villain.
No, I'm heartless. He's brainless.
Am I still a villain, though?
I see something scary. What? Is it Toto again?
Oh my, you are heartless. No, oh no, not another tornado.
What on Middle Earth is going on?
Yeah, who was that laughing?
I don't know.
Look! Is that one of the pieces from the gateway?
Yes. Let's grab it and get out of this place.
Okay, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of what that game's like. I actually completed the level because you can fall off of the gameplay and go down into the sepia-toned Kansas area. And have you done it all, Garrett?
Oh yeah, and then you can in Kansas is the tornado, so you can go back up in the tornado and land. No, they did like over the top amazing, and they would you could play with the characters in different cars, and if the Wicked Witch, when she would interact with the Ghostbusters one, the Echo one, she would hop in and be like, well, I don't like the white color, but the spooky ghost is a nice touch. And it was so weird and so much fun. I loved that game.
I know. I loved it too. Well, now let's talk about Home from Oz. We'd like to welcome Joseph and Jessica South, the creators of Home from Oz, the card game. It's my latest obsession. I'm literally addicted. It's an adventure game that reignites Dorothy's journey with each round, transporting you as the player to the land of Oz with beloved iconic characters and moments. Hey, guys.
Hi. Hey. You take Home from Oz around the country to these Oz events, and that's actually where I got to meet you all for the first time. So I was curious, of these events you've gone to since you've been doing it for what, 2-3 years now, what is your favorite memory of an Oz event you've done where you've come out to demonstrate and sell the game?
We started in 2019. We went to 5 different Oz festivals, and then obviously we took last year off with the exception of the virtual Oz conference that the Wizard of Oz Club did. I think that my favorite memory would have had, it's hard to pick. Right. There was the first conference that we went to as vendors was in Ionia, Michigan, the Michigan Wizard of Oz Fest. And there were these 2 girls who kept passing our table, and we kept saying like, hey, do you want to sit down? Do you want to learn how to play? And they're like, maybe later. Like, they just kept walking by. And the one girl was cosplaying as Dorothy. And finally, I guess they had seen everything and they were like, okay, we'll sit down, we'll play, we'll see what's going on. And they ended up there for like 3 hours.
It was great.
We just played over and over and over and over again. We got to know both of them and just really get to connect. And that's something that we just love to do, is we love to connect with people. We love to play games, but we really like to connect with people. So it was kind of our first opportunity to like really start to learn about somebody who's in the Wizard of Oz fandom and just get to connect with people on a personal level, which is something we like with the game, is it allows you to sit down and learn about the person.
Well, and it's just that quality time that you get when you're laughing with somebody, and to be able to do that with a stranger and have them sit there with you for hours. There was another dad and daughter that came and played with us in Ionia and then came back at the end of the night. They were showing the movie in the local movie theater, but they wanted to play with us until it was time for the movie to show. And there's something magical about sharing that joy with people.
Well, that's wonderful. In your time playing the game with folks, have you ever gotten any feedback or just through the course of playing it, come up with an idea that you think, oh gosh, I wish we would have done this with the game? Or maybe there's something that you think you might add in future revisions? Because I think any artist is going to, when they work with their work for so long, they're going to think, I wish I had thought of this or that.
I've got to be honest, our ideas from the get-go weren't necessarily very good. And so that testing process and getting feedback has been part of what we do from the very beginning.
Yeah, we did a lot of beta testing. A lot of our friends, a lot of people who aren't Wizard of Oz fans. And so there were a lot of things that just didn't work. Now that we have our final product out there, I can't say that there's anything specific that we're like, ooh, I wish I would have done this. But we plan on doing expansion and bonus packs, which we're trying to test. And so those changed the game. And so getting that feedback from people has kind of piqued our curiosity and our creativity for what to add with those characters. We're planning on kind of going through the whole Bomb series and adding different characters. And so it just kind of opens it up to a world of possibilities and allows people to have a chance to kind of possibly impact the game.
Yeah, I think the kind of the flip on what you said is in our beta testing, we learned things that we absolutely shouldn't do. We don't have as many regrets on, hey, I wish we had done this. It's more of I'm so glad that we didn't do this. And that feedback that we got was critical.
Well, thank you so much. And I really look forward to seeing the expansion pack.
We're looking forward to being in Missouri this year. So if you're going to be there, let's go.
We'll see you there.
And I know that the game just came out though, but are there any future like theme Oz games that you guys want to do in the future, like after this one kind of takes off?
Well, we have plans to expand the current game. So rather than trying to spin off other games around Oz, we want to make the game reflective of the Oz universe. And so our base game doesn't include things like the Emerald City or Glinda's Bubble and some of the things that are still iconic. And we want to add in more mechanics to the game that reflect those story pieces.
We have about 25 cards that are different characters, everyone from Polychrome to the Sawhorse, and locations like the Emerald City that change the gameplay almost entirely. So even though technically it won't be branded as a different game, it will play almost like a different game when you add. And our goal is eventually you'll be able to purchase whichever expansions you like. Maybe you have a favorite book or a favorite character, you get those expansions, but then you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to play with. And kind of play a different game every time.
What were some of your favorite board games growing up, though? And was that part of the process of helping you inspire your concept for this game?
So I loved all sorts of board games, and I have a family who pretty much hates board games. I have a cousin who is pretty much the only one in my family who will play with me. Monopoly is like my all-time favorite, and I know most people curse the game, but I love it. I love any and all card or board games.
And for me, my family in extended.
Joseph, did you have?
Oh yeah, man, we played a ton of cards.
Any favorite?
So we played a lot of rummy variations. I played a lot of spades. We played canasta variations, and then I always felt like there were these board games that took longer to set up than they actually did to play. So I remember that from my early childhood. And then with my sister, we would play a game called Millborn, which is also a journey game. It has some similarities to Home from Oz, but it's an old French racing game.
It's so good to see you guys again. And of course, we met in Chesterton at the last Wizard of Oz Days Festival. And I'm so excited that we'll get to see each other again in Missouri.
It's going to be great.
So exciting. And one of the great joys of being there with you guys was that you got to walk us through the game mechanics, which I know when you're playing a brand new game can be kind of challenging. And so I was wondering, how did you develop the mechanics of your game?
It started, well, there was one point where Jess was at work and she came back to kind of at the end of the day. It was before we got married, but she came over to hang out, and I was like, Jess, I did a thing. And I had gone and printed, I had gone to Office Max and printed off copies and was laminating cards. So we could make any card that we needed to in order to be able to test. In that first deck, we had multiple Dorothys and multiple Scarecrows so that everybody at the table could have their own friend kind of on their journey. And it was super cute and didn't work. Like, it just absolutely ruined the gameplay for everybody to have that access to the characters. And so the process has involved creating cards in different ratios and then paring down the ratios so that we get the exact mix that we need for the gameplay to play out evenly. And we've done that so far with the 2 to 4 player game. And now we're testing what it looks like to add in up to 6 players in our expansion, and then bonus decks that will include the extra characters. So we play a lot with the ratio of cards.
And some of our initial kind of imagining of the game was just a lot of discussion. I remember sitting in the car, we were driving somewhere, and we were talking about, well, how do you start the game? Like, can you just, we had already decided that you had to collect bricks to kind of follow the yellow brick road. But I'm like, can you just, as soon as you have bricks, can you just lay them down? Do you have to do something to start? And it just kind of clicked, right? Like a tornado, obviously, like we need some sort of a tornado to get to Oz so you can start your journey. And so it was just kind of a lot of talking through. Sometimes it started with the mechanic, and then we try to find a card or a character or a place that would fit. Like, oh, we want to do this. Does that make sense with anything in the story? Or sometimes it was like, okay, we really want to make sure we obviously include everyone from the Veb Force. So what does the lion do? What would make sense with the lion? How do we make a mechanic that makes sense with the greater story?
Well, and in that we've had to figure out, how do you make a card that has limits, right? And make sure that the limits don't make it so that if you have that one power card, then you're bound to win the game. And so in seeking that balance, we've gone back to the storyline to figure out, each of the characters has their own strengths, but also has their own weaknesses. One of my favorite cards is the Cowardly Lion. He protects you a little bit from flying monkeys coming and ruining your journey. But the Cowardly Lion is only so brave. And so he'll protect monkeys from coming and stealing single bricks, but not stealing 2 or 3 bricks at a time. And the object of the game is to collect as many bricks as you need to make it home. And so if you're getting your 2 and 3 bricks stolen, you're like, no, you're being set back so much further. But the lion's there to help you along the way, bit by bit. Even if it's slow going, he's still there. He still has your back, and that's what we get in the actual story of the Wizard of Oz.
So now that you've had the opportunity to play with hardcore Oz fans, because the people who go to these events are the hardcore fans, what's been the response?
it was interesting kind of stepping into this fandom, because although we were fans of The Wizard of Oz, we were not hardcore Oz fans. Full disclosure, this was a fandom that we didn't realize was as alive and well and vibrant as it is, and it's beautiful, and I'm so excited to be a part of it now. But we played with a lot of people who had played games or had obviously grown up watching the movie once a year. But no true Oz fans until we went to these conferences. And I think that there's just been these little moments where people appreciate, for example, because we're going off of both the book and the movie, trying not to obviously step on any MGM rights. We have the charm slippers on our cards are silver. And so if you read the books or if you've, watched Wicked, they're silver slippers. And but our Dorothy card, she's wearing red shoes. So you kind of have both of those. And so we've seen people the shoes are silver. Just little things it's not just a regurgitation of the movie, but it pulls. And so you have both the people who are fans of the movie who like it. You have people who are fans of the book, or all throughout the Oz spectrum that really have seemed to appreciate it. So we're excited that we've gotten the stamp of approval from Oz fanatics.
I'm hyped, right? We did a ton of testing with some young adults in our community, and what's funny is that some of them haven't even seen the movie. And they're in their 30s, right? We've got one who's a friend of ours, and he's a U.S. Marshal, right? Making arrests of potential terrorists and getting training in boot camp scenarios. And he's super cool. He's never seen it. We have given him a copy of the movie, and he still hasn't watched it. But he will come and he will play the game with us, which is just fascinating, right? So here we are, right? We didn't grow up in the fandom, like some of you, the lucky people here with us today. But we're learning, we're introducing people that have never experienced it to the Wizard of Oz, and it's so to experience it with people who have never seen it. We thought, okay, we have a good game, right? But then to play with friends who have been full on in the fandom for years, and to know that you enjoy the game means that we've got that stamp of approval, and we've done a great job that spans the spectrum.
It's nice to actually meet y'all. I heard about y'all through the grapevine. This is my first chance to actually get to talk to you, so I'm super excited.
We are too.
Okay, so my first question, how do you go about actually adapting a book into a card game? What's actually involved in that?
We lucked out because we chose a format and mechanic that is a journey, and we specifically chose a journey game.
Okay. So,
and I think the challenge was not wanting to recreate a board game, and so you've seen the board games. You mentioned earlier that they can play really simply. Mm-hmm. Not to bash on any one particular game, but I don't like Candyland. Right? Just that sense that you roll a dice or you spin a spinner, and then it's at the luck of how it lands. Mm-hmm. And that's really good for really young characters. But we wanted something that can engage young characters and old characters in such a way where it's not just the luck of the spin or the roll of the dice, and you have to make decisions. And so it was finding the right story with some of those objectives, and it just, our process wouldn't necessarily work with every story, mm-hmm. right? Because our expectations of what we wanted from the game, right, wouldn't match with every story.
We've had people who are asking us, "Oh, are you going to take your game and put it into a different fandom? Are you going to do a different book, a different story?" And I'm like, I just don't think it would work. Like we built it specifically with Wizard of Oz because it is such a great journey. And if you've read through each of the books, each book is its own journey story. And so there are other journey stories, right? Like there are other stories that kind of fall into that same format. But just to have something kind of as quintessential as the Wizard of Oz, there's just something magical about that journey. And so just being able to say, okay, how can we take these things? And we've kind of mentioned it in some of our other answers. How can we take this story and the journey that somebody would go through, whether it be Dorothy or somebody else kind of mimicking Dorothy's journey? How do we take those elements and kind of make it your own without literally taking a token and moving it across colored spaces on a board?
I think an example or a possible alternative would have been us making an Alice in Wonderland game. Alice in Wonderland is a journey game, and we could use a similar format, but Alice in Wonderland lacks the connection that we see in the Wizard of Oz. Alice doesn't have traveling companions. She's confused along the way. There isn't order and meaning and purpose in what Alice is doing. But what we find in the Wizard of Oz is that Dorothy has that purpose. She has to follow the yellow brick road. She has to get home. She has to see the wizard. And then she's connecting with people along the way that are working with her in that. And so there's, in my mind, there's a richness to the Wizard of Oz story that actually brings a fullness to the game, where another journey story may not actually even work as well with the format that we've created.
Very cool. And that sort of segued towards what I was going to ask was then, what made you specifically choose the Wizard of Oz over, say, something else, which makes total sense with the description of the journey game. So I'm going to turn this on its ear a little and go, well, what characters are you excited to maybe add in later ones? Is there a character that's not in Wizard that you're really excited to bring into play?
Yes. Oh my goodness. There are so many. We have some of, I think the ones I'm most excited about are the ones that we already have our artwork for, just because they're closer to being there. They're closer to real. And so those ones we have Ozma, which actually, if you have the game, you can see her. She's on one of like the cards that tell you about like our social media and things. So you can actually see our Ozma artwork. We also have a Winky, a Munchkin, and the Emerald City. And so we've been testing those. And so I'm really excited to bring those ones because they're so close because the artwork's already in.
Yeah. As I've been playing it now back home with other friends of mine, even friends that aren't Oz fans, they're like, let's play another round. They're into it. You don't have to be an Oz fan to play it. But I just love how deeper the themes of the characters and the Land of Oz and moments from the story really are layered within the gameplay. Can you speak to how challenging that might have been to include that? Or was it very easy for you as you were developing the game to make that happen?
I think it was actually kind of easy once we got the format, and it spawned a lot of conversation. Whether that was us while we're playing, hey, we should add this person or that person, or I wish we had a mechanic that did this. So we were able to approach it from both angles. From we want the story integrated with the game, or we want the game to be able to do this. And Garrett asked the question earlier, why did we choose the Wizard of Oz? One of the reasons that we chose the Wizard of Oz was because during my divorce with my daughter, she was around 4 or 5 years old at the time. We started reading the Wizard of Oz together. And so it was that father-daughter bonding time where it didn't just stop with the first book, but it extended into the full series. And so we were exposed to all of these characters, and we knew what we were getting, and I knew that it was kind of safe material to experience with my daughter, but it was also teaching her things like emotional intelligence and resilience, that even when we come up against challenges, we do our best to make the most of difficult situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was in that spirit that we encountered the story, and then to be able to create a game where we intentionally made mechanics frustrating in order to mirror the experience that you get on the Yellow Brick Road. So it's not a game where you can set it up and play in 5 minutes, because you know that there are going to be setbacks when you sit down to play this game. And I think that's one of the things that makes that made it easy for us. The game didn't have to be easy to play.
Mm-hmm. It's a great metaphor for life in some ways, and we all relate to Dorothy's journey and the Yellow Brick Road that way. And I think what you did is really, really beautiful. And of course, Baum has some very lovely, very light-handed teachable moments always throughout his books that are fantastic. In addition to the card game, though, and the expansion packs you're working on, you're also developing an online version. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, I am hoping that we can get this online version out sometime, the beta version sometime in June. I've been pushing really hard to get it at the beginning of June, and there's still some bugs to work out. But we look forward to having an experience where people can learn to play the game without having to buy it, without having to show up at a festival, where you can kind of send your friend a text message or a Facebook notification, be like, hey, come play this game with me. One thing that I'm excited about with that too is this possibility of being able to play the game on your computer in one window and video chat with a friend in the other window, so that you can actually see them and talk and have that kind of tabletop experience with them as you play. Unlike, mobile games where you might just get a notification, we think that the game might be playable in real time. When we're at the festivals, I love to tell people that our game is a sit down with friends and family face to face and antagonize each other card game. And I think that in the space where technology allows us to do things like this with multiple people and video chat and have conversation, why not extend that conversation and connection into our gameplay?
Well, I think that going through COVID kind of taught us all like the importance of staying connected with people and having to find creative ways to do that, having to do that virtually, because you can't, for a year and a half, we haven't been able to sit down and play cards with our friends or our family members, really. And so to be able to do that in a virtual space just kind of makes sense.
In addition to just being a super fun game, it's also gorgeous to look at. I love the artwork. I've actually ordered some of the canvases you sell. In addition to the card game, you sell canvases and mugs, and as well you should, because the artwork in this game is absolutely delightful. I love it. Do you want to give a quick shout out to your artist?
Oh, yes. We are so thankful for her. She remains anonymous. She's going through burnout right now. So positive vibes and prayers and thoughts for her. She has done an absolutely wonderful job, and we are so proud of her.
We couldn't recommend it enough. It's really the most fun Oz game I've played in decades. So check it out, Home from Oz. You won't regret it. And leave in the comments what other games you might like that are Oz themed that we might have missed in this episode. Let us know what you'd like us to chat about in future episodes of Oz Talk. And, we're all here because of the Oz Club, which is something you should join. Right, Zoe?
That is right, because we've got a national convention every year. This year it's going to be virtual again, but we also have regular meet and greets with other Oz fans where you can get together, discuss things. We have interactive opportunities, such as we had an Oz Cabaret 2 months ago. And there's just so much fun to be had with the club. And you also get a subscription to the Bomb Bugle where you can read about all things Oz. So who wouldn't want to do that? So stop waiting. Just go to ozclub.org and sign up. You won't regret it. I absolutely guarantee that.
Joseph, Jessica South, thank you so much. Homefromoz.com. Everybody else, great to see you. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.